Russian casualties rise to a historic monthly figure. Attempted attack on Viktor Orban in France failed, and they endangered Ramstein 25. It is me, Pavlo Stelmach, and now we will break up the top news of this day in easy manner. September was the deadliest month for Russia's army since the start of the war in Ukraine, as reported by the British military intelligence. The average casualty rate for Russian army rose to almost 1.3 thousand soldiers killed or badly injured per day, as drunk colonels, I'm quoting now a material by The Telegraph, are sent and mobilized to suicide missions. Previously, the highest daily casualty rate for Russian soldiers had been in May, with an average of 1.2 thousand soldiers killed or injured. The increase in the casualty rate since May 2024 is almost certainly due to the extension of the combat zone to include both Kharkiv and Kursk military operations and increased intensity along their front line, the UK Ministry of Defense said.
Russia's casualty rate will likely continue to average above 1,000 a day for the rest of 2024, despite the onset of winter. To date, winter conditions have not resulted in a reduction of offensive operations or attrition rates, due to Russia's reliance on dismounted tactics and a lack of maneuver warfare, which requires better conditions. UK Ministry of Defense reports on X social network.
Both Russian offensive operations in the north of Kharkiv region near Vovchansk and Ukrainian incursion into Kursk have risen the intensity of battles, especially the artillery usage from both sides, with rising casualties of the occupiers, as Ukrainian forces are on the defense by a large part. And the war of attrition continues. Be sure to subscribe to UATV for more coverage from the Ukrainian point of view. The so-called Lone War continues, which is Russia's bet to drain out Ukrainian human resources and drain the patience of Western allies. They hope for a capitulation of Ukraine, so continue to advance despite the horrific losses, which would make any other army in the world stop. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban was almost attacked during a press conference in Strasbourg, France. According to European media, an opposition party member from Hungary ran up too close to Orban, shouting that he betrayed his own people and sold them to China and Russia. Mr. Orban was just talking to journalists that one simply cannot defeat Russia on the battlefield and you need to negotiate a ceasefire as soon as possible. And then this happened.
The Hungarian intention is focusing on to manage a ceasefire as soon as possible. A ceasefire. Because we are convinced that you cannot win that war on the battlefield. Simply you cannot. That's our opinion.
How much money did you betray your country for, Prime Minister? He sold it to Putin. He sold it to Xi Jinping.
And let's hear the position of NATO now. Then Prime Minister of the Netherlands, a good friend of Ukraine and democracy, now Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, is very concrete in his words that describe the position of the majority in Europe.
Ultimately, it's up to Ukraine to decide what are acceptable conditions for a negotiated solution. And also what are the conditions for engaging in talks with Russia. It's up to Ukraine, it's up to Volodymyr Zelensky to decide that. And what we need to do is to focus on what NATO can do. What NATO can do is help to strengthen Ukraine's hand by providing enough military support. That's why I'm so happy that next Saturday we will participate in the Ramstein meeting. And I think it is an excellent initiative by the American president to get us together at the leaders level in Ramstein next Saturday. And why is it so important that we do more to strengthen Ukraine's hand? Because it's the only way to a negotiated agreement. I believe it's the only way at the end of the road. And to convince Putin that he will not win on the battlefield. And that is the paradox. That to come to a negotiated agreement, we have to make sure that Ukraine is strong.
That's quite the opposite position, to be sure. While the majority says Ukraine has to win on the battlefield, and it can do so with our help, friends of Putin continue to convince that it is impossible to defeat Russia on the battlefield, which is one of the myths of the Russian state propaganda. To be honest, I don't like the tendency. Europe seems to be divided as never before, between the ones who dare to oppose Russian brutal intervention and genocidal war of attrition, and the ones who want to return to comfortable times when you could buy cheap Russian gas and not think about some country in Eastern Europe that is shouting, "We are attacked now and you are next." That's an uncomfortable truth, isn't it? And let's remember the attempt on the life of Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico earlier. He nearly recovered after being shot at. Again, the reason for attack being political motives. And more about political reasons and motives of ambiguous figures in Europe and the threatened 25th Ramstein meeting, we will talk with Igor Papo, an expert at the United Ukraine think tank and an experienced politician. Greetings, Mr. Igor.
Good day.
It's very nice to have you in our studio. And today I would like to talk about Europe because it seems to be divided. Orban and Fico promote Russian-Chinese narrative, while the leaders in Brussels have a firm pro-Ukrainian position. Let's once again talk about why Hungarian and Slovak leaders play in hand with basically the enemies of Europe right now.
Well, for sure, leaders of Slovakia and Hungary have their own opinion on many European issues, including values. That's why maybe war in Ukraine is one additional topic which gives them opportunity to demonstrate their special position. But for sure, in Ukraine, public are offended to hear proposals about possible compromise with Russia or criticism of any Western assistance, military and economical assistance to Ukraine. And unfortunately, sometimes Hungary and Slovakia use their veto right in some votings. And that's why we have delays in receiving such assistance.
Yes, and yesterday we had an attempted attack on Viktor Orban by, as they say, an opposition politician of Hungary. It is demonstrating us that tensions are rising. Mark Rutte, the new Secretary General of NATO, has declared that Ukraine is going through its hardest winter right now of the war, the third one winter, and we have Orban who is practically saying the opposite. Rutte says Ukraine has to win on the front line, and Orban says it is impossible to win Russia on the battlefield. Do you think that this divide will continue to evolve, or there will be some kind of an agreement between Orban and the Brussels?
For sure, we will not support any violence in politics because politicians have a lot of any other leverages about political discussions and how to promote their arguments. But yes, we have many challenges in Ukraine, in military sphere, in energy, and we need consolidation among our allies, and we need deep understanding who is the root of all these problems and what solutions could be proposed and made to protect Ukrainian civilians from missiles attack and from destroying Ukrainian energy infrastructure.
Well, the winter is coming, and we hope that NATO will finally make a decision to either provide Ukraine with more air defense or to finally shoot down Russian missiles and drones that are crossing the NATO border. And speaking about NATO, the Ramstein number 25, which had to be symbolic and special, is in danger. First, Joe Biden cancelled his visit, and now Secretary Blinken announced the same. Even Chancellor of Germany Scholz is worried about that. Do you think we can expect the meeting to be postponed? And is there some back motive about this delay in the meeting?
We expected a very important meeting in Ramstein military base, and they were already announced that leaders from dozens of countries will come together with the ministries of foreign affairs and ministries of defense. That's why we expected that such high representation will discuss not only everyday issues about military supply. But we expected more deeper discussion about regional security. President Zelensky team has developed a victory plan for Ukraine, and our president presented this plan in New York in General Assembly to several Ukrainian allies, first of all to United States. And in this upcoming meeting in Ramstein, we planned to present victory plan to all other countries and to discuss very specific proposals how to improve Ukrainian position. Unfortunately, we will not have this week this Ramstein meeting, but I don't see any hidden agenda because when I contact my colleagues in the United States, they prove that hurricane is very important issue and it's really danger. That's why American citizens wouldn't understand when leadership will leave country in such important way. So we see that without personal presence of American delegation, the meeting will be postponed. There is one interesting option to organize such meeting, or at least similar meeting. Next week there will be a meeting of NATO defense ministers in Brussels on 17th and 18th of October. So it would be good occasion to organize at the same time a Ramstein meeting and to discuss regional security issues.
Well, that's an interesting point because I've seen some publications that the hurricane is really intense in the U.S. and it might be a political gesture to support the people of the country from the leadership of the United States. And thank you, Mr. Popov. That was really insightful and interesting conversation. Thank you for joining our studio and have a nice day. Hope to see you again. Well, that seems to be all for today. Thank you for your support. I really hope that we at UATV help you to understand the situation better and build your personal position more confidently. Be sure to subscribe and share this video as it is your support that really matters for us. Take care.